Salutations, my Fallout lovers. It is Matty here today with a Fallout 4 response video. Today we're going to be taking a look at an article by Metro titled Fallout 4 Should Have Had Multiplayer, and it's a reader's feature. So mind you, I am not attacking the writer of this article, but I wanted to discuss this because it's become a topic that a lot of the Fallout community has been discussing, and I wanted to talk about if Fallout 4 multiplayer would or would not work based off what was presented in this article, as well as some of my own ideas. So, the article says, what can be done? This may seem like blasphemy, but I'd like Bethesda to have a crack at some sort of multiplayer mode. Something along the lines of aligning yourself to some faction or other, of which you only have a finite amount of resources, thereby requiring you to venture out into the multiplayer wasteland to try and scavenge or steal goods. If you fail to venture out enough, or don't have the success when out and about, your settlement is vulnerable to attack due to your decreasing resources. There would be some kind of moral reputation factor, good or bad, that could be linked in some way to a bounty system that may make you a target for others to cash in on. Other games have already touched on this. So I kind of laughed a little bit at first, not in a mean way, but just because the idea of his multiplayer going out and getting resources and bringing them back to your settlement is already in the single player of Fallout 4, because you go out, you collect all the miscellaneous items, you put them inside your workshop, and then you can build from there, or you can craft with them and whatnot. But nonetheless, I like the idea of bringing back the moral system, the kind of reputation system from New Vegas. I like the idea of a bounty system, that's always great, but I have some quirks with these ideas. Starting off with one point, the casual gets even more casual, okay? And this is me not being mean, but this is me more so saying that Fallout 4 is considered a much more casual Fallout game than any previous entry, mainly due to the voiced protagonist, the dialogue wheel, and I totally understand that. Also, the lack of choice plays into effect. Now, mind you, I was guilty of saying that the game had choice when I originally reviewed the game before launch, but obviously when the game gets into 20 million plus people's hands, you already know that that's going to get exposed, and so I was entirely wrong about that. And with that being said, I thought to myself that, hey, if the single player version of the game isn't going to have choice, then what makes me think that a multiplayer version will have some element of choice that's going to impact the world like previous Fallout games did, and impact these people around me in these memorable experiences? It's not impossible, but I doubt it's going to happen if they didn't do it right in a single player environment. What makes us think that they're going to do it right in a multiplayer environment? The reason I say that is because usually with games, when you make a choice, you see the environment around you start to change and transform, the people start reacting differently to you. And mind you, that can happen, but when I'm talking about area changes, I think of something along the lines of Infamous, where the way you act kind of transforms the city, and I think to myself that that would never happen in a multiplayer game because everyone's sharing that same play space, so it's really about those personal interactions, and I doubt you can carry around companions with you when it's a multiplayer game where it's supposed to be your friends with you. You get what I'm saying, where it's going to get more dumbed down when Fallout 4 is arguably already a more dumbed down experience in certain ways. I think people mistake dumbed down for being simplified. That's not a bad thing at all, but definitely the game was made more to a average gamer audience, and I think if it went multiplayer, it's going to appeal to more people because, you know, there's going to be those people who are saying, oh, well, my friend's getting this game, it's multiplayer, I'll pick it up anyway just because I want to play games with my friends. We've all had those games before, right? With that being said, brings me to my next one. Elder Scrolls Online is a fantastic example of what happens when a Bethesda Game Studios game tries to go online. Now, mind you, I'm an advocate that Elder Scrolls Online is not a great game by any means, definitely not the best Elder Scrolls game, but it's most certainly not a bad game, okay? It just kind of sits there in the okay range, like, huh, this is kind of fun to play with my friends. I enjoy this. I like dabbling about in the Elder Scrolls universe. It's a good time. And so I thought to myself that I think Elder Scrolls Online is a great example of what Fallout Online would be. It would just sit there between like mediocre and okay, and fans would get mad anytime the name was mentioned, and it would just be toxic to that franchise and forever remembered as this giant pimple on the Elder Scrolls face, right? Is that Elder Scrolls Online. That would be the same with Fallout, because, you know, you have the Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel, the one where you're like the over top beat 'em up, and then you're gonna have Fallout Line on the other pimple. So you get what I'm saying, where this is just gonna be this giant issue with it. It's not going to be well received, but this isn't saying that Fallout multiplayer wouldn't be awful. I'm one that's kind of like, I play it by ear, kind of feel it out, sort of be like, all right, you know, maybe this will be good, maybe this will be bad, and then totally judge it on launch day despite all the trailers and promotion it received. Also, another example is that Elder Scrolls Online cut out a bunch of factions that they're adding as DLC, like the Dark Brotherhood and Thieves Guild, and it would just bother me if, for example, Fallout cut out the Brotherhood of Steel and the Enclave, and like, oh yeah, a couple months later we're going to have DLC for those factions coming back into the Wasteland. It would just kind of bother me. Last but not least is that the article tends to complain about bugs and hiccups with the game, and the guy even waited until about January to start playing the game when there were a bunch of patches out, and he complained that there were still some issues with the game, which I find a bit surprising, especially when I updated my console version and gave it like a 10-hour game session and didn't encounter any hiccups. But mind you, I'm very lucky when it comes to bugs, I've noticed, and especially when my only Bethesda Game Studios bug experience was a giant in Skyrim smacking me into the air, and I went flying into sky, had a good laugh, and that was the extent of my bug foray for Bethesda, knock on wood mind you. But still, I thought to myself that if bugs are this guy's primary issue, which I totally understand, Bethesda Game Studios games are notorious for bugs, even though I've noticed a lot of people have them, but also a lot of people don't have them. But wouldn't multiplayer bring in more bugs? Because not only are you having this open dynamic world, but now you're having a bunch of people interacting with everything in that open world and the servers, and you know that Bethesda Game Studios likes to make their games nice and big and open. You can, quote, do whatever you want, end quote, and I can imagine in a multiplayer game that would strip that right away, but also still bring in lots of more bugs. Elder Scrolls Online, once again, a great example on how quests were endlessly broken in Elder Scrolls Online on launch. The servers sucked. It was tough to match up with your friends and get them in a group, getting in the same phase. It's not that MMOs are always a bad idea, they're just usually notoriously bad at launch, I've noticed, except for a handful. But still, I don't think Fallout Online would be an exception to these issues at all. I think they experience them and more because it would be Bethesda Game Studios' first try at an online game. But I'm not totally against the idea. I'd kind of play it by ear. It would definitely be extended content to mess around with in the Fallout universe, and if you're a diehard fan, then you'd probably play it a lot. But still, this is just my response video, not an attack. Just kind of wanted to discuss Fallout Online a little bit more and see what the Fallout community was thinking on this. So let me know in the comments down below what you're thinking. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. The links are in the description. Check out SugarBomb.com, the place by Bethesda fans for Bethesda fans. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.